The cry and the response. The Xendari homeworld of Lumina had always been a beacon of peace. Its crystalline city sparkled under the light of twin suns, and its people, tall, willowy beings with iridescent skin, had spent millennia dedicated to art, philosophy, and the sciences. Their technological advancement had come through careful, methodical exploration, always with an eye toward harmony and balance. They had never needed weapons, not until now. The Vrecken ships appeared without warning, massive, angular vessels that blotted out the stars as they descended through Lumina's atmosphere. The Xendari Council watched in horror as these ships disgorged armored warriors, their bodies enhanced with cybernetic implants, their weapons capable of reducing luminous crystal towers to dust in seconds. "They want our world," Elder Thalia whispered as she watched the destruction unfold from the council chambers. "The crystalline core, the resonance fields, they're going to strip it all away." Within hours, 3 major cities had fallen. The Vreckens were methodical in their assault, destroying any resistance with swift, merciless efficiency. The Xendari, with their limited defensive capabilities, were powerless against the onslaught. "We need help," Counselor Varen said, his voice trembling. "We must send out a distress call." "To whom?" Elder Thalia asked. "The Galactic Confederation has ignored our petitions for protection for years. The Araxian Alliance is too distant." "There are others," Varen replied, his eyes fixed on a star map that hovered in the center of the chamber. "Emerging civilizations on the galactic rim. Some have not yet joined the major powers." "You mean primitives?" another counselor scoffed. "What good would they be against Vrecken war machines?" "Not primitives," Varen said, enhancing the image of a blue-green planet in an unremarkable solar system. "This world has been monitored by our deep space probes. They call it Earth. They've only recently achieved interstellar capability, but our observations suggest they possess unusual adaptability." Elder Thalia studied the hologram. "The Confederation classifies them as a Level 3 species, technologically immature but advancing rapidly. They're untested, unpredictable. But they are not bound by Confederation treaties," Varen pointed out. "They could act when others would not." As another distant explosion rocked the council chambers, Elder Thalia nodded. "Send the signal, on all frequencies. Make it clear that our survival depends on their response." Admiral Helena Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, Earth's first true battleship. At 53, she had the bearing of someone who had spent their life in command. Her close-cropped silver hair and penetrating gaze had earned her respect throughout the United Earth Defense Force. "The signal has been authenticated, Admiral," her communications officer reported. "It originated from the Xendari homeworld, approximately 37 light-years from our position." "And what do we know about the Xendari?" Chen asked. Captain Rodriguez, her XO, stepped forward. "Not much, Admiral. We've detected their probes on the edge of our system, but they've never made direct contact. Intelligence suggests they're a peaceful species, technologically advanced, but not militaristic. And now they're under attack by these Vreckens." "Yes, Mom. From what we can piece together, the Vreckens are essentially interstellar pirates. They strip planets of valuable resources and move on. No diplomacy, no warning." Admiral Chen studied the tactical display, where the distress signal blinked steadily. "And why have their neighbors not responded?" "The Galactic Confederation has hundreds of member worlds closer than we are." "Politics, most likely," Rodriguez replied. "The Confederation has strict non-intervention protocols. By the time they debate and vote on action, the Xendari will be gone." Chen nodded slowly. Humanity had been aware of the wider galactic community for less than a decade. They had been observing cautiously from the sidelines, building their fleet, developing their technology by reverse engineering the occasional alien craft that ventured too close to Earth. They hadn't formally announced themselves yet, preferring to strengthen their position before stepping onto the interstellar stage. but a direct call for help that changed things. "How many ships can we deploy within 48 hours?" she asked. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. "You're considering a response." "I'm not just considering it, Captain. I want options on my desk in an hour. We've been waiting for the right moment to show the galaxy what humanity is capable of. This is it." 3 days later, a fleet of 27 Earth vessels dropped out of hyperspace on the edge of the Xendari system. The UES Indomitable led the formation, flanked by cruisers, destroyers, and specialized assault craft. Every ship bore the insignia of the United Earth Defense Force, a blue Earth encircled by 3 stars. Scans show 14 Vrecken vessels in orbit around the planet, the sensor officer reported. They're large, heavily armed. Numerous smaller craft are on the surface. Significant damage to major population centers. "Are we too late?" Rodriguez asked quietly. Admiral Chen studied the tactical display, then shook her head. "The Xendari capital still stands, though it's under siege. Their signal continues to broadcast. They're holding on. The Vreckens have detected us," the tactical officer announced. 3 of their ships are breaking orbit, heading in our direction." "Let them come," Chen said, her voice calm. "Alert all ships. Battle formation Delta. Prepare to engage." As the Earth fleet moved into position, the advancing Vrecken ships suddenly paused, then transmitted a message. It appeared on the main view screen, a humanoid figure, heavily augmented with cybernetic implants, its skin gray and leathery. "Unknown vessels," the figure growled in a surprisingly understandable language. "This system is claimed by the Vrecken hegemony. Depart immediately or be destroyed." Admiral Chen stepped forward. "This is Admiral Helena Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We are responding to a distress call from the Xendari people. It is you who will withdraw your forces, immediately and completely." The Vrecken commander's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused. "Earth, we know nothing of your world or your species. This is not your concern. The strong take what they need in this galaxy. The weak perish. This is the natural order." "Then allow me to introduce humanity to you," Chen replied, her voice hardening. "We disagree with your assessment of the natural order. Withdraw now or learn firsthand what happens when you threaten those under our protection." The Vrecken commander laughed, a harsh, metallic sound. "You protect nothing. You are nothing. We have conquered 53 worlds. Your small fleet is an annoyance at best." "Final warning," Chen said simply. The communication ended as suddenly as it had begun. The 3 Vrecken ships accelerated, weapon systems coming online. "They're charging weapons," the tactical officer reported. "Energy signatures suggest plasma-based artillery, similar to our Phase 2 cannons but cruder." "Target their propulsion and weapon systems," Chen ordered. "Cruisers Thermopylae and Shackleton, execute flanking maneuver Alpha. All other vessels hold position." The battle was over in less than 10 minutes. The Earth ships moved with a coordination that seemed impossible, their defensive systems easily deflecting the Vrecken's initial barrage. When the UES Indomitable finally fired, its main cannons released streams of accelerated particles that cut through the Vrecken ship's shields as if they were tissue paper. One Vrecken ship exploded in a brilliant flash. Another lost power and began to drift. The third managed to turn and flee, trailing debris and venting atmosphere. On the bridge of the Indomitable, there was no celebration, only efficient professionalism as damage reports were processed and systems recalibrated. "The remaining Vrecken ships are repositioning," Rodriguez reported. "They're forming a defensive perimeter around the planet." "They're protecting their ground forces," Chen nodded. "And they're calling for reinforcements. Signal the fleet. We're moving in. Prepare the dropships. It's time to introduce ourselves to the Xendari." On Lumina's surface, Elder Thalia and what remained of the Xendari Council watched the skies with a mixture of hope and fear. The arrival of unknown ships had temporarily halted the Vrecken advance, but no one knew what to expect from these newcomers. They destroyed 3 Vrecken warships in minutes, Counselor Varen said, his voice hushed with awe. Who are they? As if in answer, a series of smaller craft began to descend through the atmosphere. Unlike the angular, intimidating Vrecken ships, these vessels were sleek and streamlined. They landed with precision in the central plaza of the capital city, just beyond the energy barrier that was the Xendari's last line of defense. The first humans to set foot on Xendari soil were a squad of Marines in powered combat armor. They established a perimeter with practiced efficiency, their movements displaying a level of military discipline that the peace-loving Xendari found both impressive and terrifying. Then came the diplomats and medical personnel, carrying supplies and equipment. At their head was a woman in a dark blue uniform adorned with insignia that the Xendari could not decipher. "I am Captain Layla Rice of the United Earth Defense Force," she announced as she approached the barrier. "We received your distress call. We've come to help." Elder Thalia stepped forward, her tall, willowy form dwarfing the human captain. "I am Elder Thalia of the Xendari Council. Your intervention is unexpected, but welcome. How did you defeat the Vrecken ship so easily?" Captain Rice smiled grimly. "Let's just say that humanity has had plenty of practice preparing for threats. We've spent much of our history fighting each other, I'm afraid. It's given us certain advantages when it comes to warfare. You came all this way, risked your lives, for strangers?" Thalia asked, genuine confusion in her voice. "That's what humans do," Rise replied simply. "Now we need to discuss your situation quickly. The Vreckens still control much of your world, and they're calling for reinforcements. Admiral Chen has a plan, but we'll need your cooperation." As the human and Xendari delegations conferred, more Earth ships entered the atmosphere. Dropships deployed armored vehicles and artillery pieces. Earth Marines in powered combat suits established defensive positions around the city. From orbit, Admiral Chen watched the deployment with satisfaction. The first phase of the operation had gone perfectly. The Vreckens had been caught completely off guard by human technology and tactics, but she knew the real test was yet to come. "The Vrecken ground forces are regrouping," Rodriguez reported. "They're concentrating their troops for what looks like a major assault on the capital, and long-range sensors show more Vrecken ships entering the system, at least 30 vessels, possibly more." Chen nodded. "Right on schedule. Send word to Captain Rice. She has 6 hours to evacuate as many Xendari civilians as possible to the designated safe zones. Then execute Operation Thunderclap." "Yes, Admiral," Rodriguez replied, unable to hide the slight edge of concern in his voice. "Do you think the Xendari understand what's about to happen?" Chen looked at the beautiful crystalline cities on the planet below, many already damaged by the Vrecken assault. "No," she said quietly. "I don't think anyone in this galaxy understands what happens when humans go to war, but they're about to learn." The remaining Vrecken ships, now reinforced by their incoming fleet, began to move into attack formation. They clearly expected the Earth vessels to either retreat in the face of superior numbers or make a heroic but doomed last stand. They were not prepared for what happened next. The UE is indomitable, and its fleet suddenly accelerated to attack speed. Rather than adopt a defensive posture, the Earth ships split into precisely coordinated battle groups and drove straight into the heart of the Vrecken formation. The space above Lumina erupted in a display of destructive power unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. Earth ships maneuvered with impossible precision, their advanced targeting systems finding weaknesses in Vrecken defenses that the pirates didn't even know existed. On the surface, the Xendari watched in awe as flashes of light illuminated their sky, the funeral pyres of mighty warships reduced to scrap in minutes. "What are they?" whispered an aide, standing next to Elder Thalia. The elder had no answer. She could only watch as humanity announced its arrival to the galaxy in a language that everyone understood: overwhelming force, the reckoning, and the revelation. The battle in orbit lasted less than 3 hours. What began as a Vrekan force of over 40 warships ended with a scattered handful of vessels fleeing into hyperspace, carrying with them tales that would soon spread throughout the galaxy. On Lumina's surface, the real work was just beginning. Earth Marines moved methodically through the ruined cities, hunting down the remaining Vrekan ground forces. Their powered combat armor made them nearly invulnerable to Vrekan weapons, while their own firearms, railguns firing hypervelocity projectiles, cut through Vrekan armor with ease. "They fight like nothing I've ever seen," Counselor Varen said as he watched helmet camera footage alongside Elder Thalia. "There is no hesitation, no fear. They fight like they've been doing it their entire lives," Thalia replied softly. The truth was that these humans, these saviors who had appeared from nowhere to answer their call, terrified her almost as much as the Vrekans had. The clinical efficiency with which they dispatched their enemies spoke of a species intimately familiar with warfare, a concept almost alien to the Xendari mind. Captain Rice approached, removing her helmet as she entered the command center. "The southern continent is secure. We've eliminated all Vrekan resistance in the major population centers. Isolated pockets remain in the wilderness areas, but they're disorganized and running low on supplies." "And the civilian casualties?" Thalia asked. "Minimal since our arrival. Your people followed evacuation orders remarkably well." Rise paused, studying the Xendari leader's expression. "You seem troubled, Elder." "Your methods are effective," Thalia said carefully, "but disturbing. Your soldiers kill without hesitation. They're Marines, ma'am. It's what they're trained to do. The Vrekans weren't offering surrender, and every moment we hesitated would have cost more Xendari lives." "Yes, of course," Thalia nodded. "Please understand, Captain Rice. Violence is nearly absent from our society. To witness such proficiency in warfare is difficult for us." "I understand," Rice said, though her expression suggested she didn't, not really. "If it helps, we're rotating in more medical and engineering teams now that the fighting has died down. Reconstruction will begin immediately." Admiral Chen stood before a holographic display in her ready room aboard the Indomitable. The image showed the current deployment of Earth forces across Lumina. Military units in red, medical and engineering teams in green. Nearly a third of the planet was now under direct human control. "The Vrekan threat has been neutralized," Rodriguez reported. "Their remaining ground forces are scattered and in full retreat. Our Marines are pursuing, with orders to capture when possible." "And our casualties?" Chen asked. 17 dead, 42 wounded. Most injuries are minor." Chen nodded solemnly. "Every loss hurt, but the numbers were remarkably low given the scale of the operation. Earth's technological advantage had proven even greater than they'd anticipated." "What about the Xendari response?" she asked. Rodriguez hesitated. "Mixed, Admiral. They're grateful, certainly. But there's also fear. Our combat methods have unsettled them. They've never seen anything like it. They asked for help," Chen said simply. "We delivered." "Yes, ma'am. But I think they expected something different, perhaps a negotiated settlement or limited support. The Vrekans weren't interested in negotiations. They understand only strength." Chen turned away from the display. "What's the status of our diplomatic team?" "Ambassador Hayes is prepared to meet with the Xendari Council tomorrow. The preliminary treaty has been drafted." "Good. Make sure he understands our position is non-negotiable. We didn't come all this way just to leave them vulnerable again." The next day, the Great Hall of the Xendari capital hosted an unprecedented meeting. On one side sat what remained of the Xendari Council, their numbers reduced by Vrekan attacks. On the other, a delegation from Earth led by Ambassador William Hayes, a distinguished diplomat with silver hair and a commanding presence. "We are eternally grateful for Earth's intervention," Elder Thalia began. "Without your help, our civilization would have been destroyed." Hayes nodded graciously. "Humanity is pleased to have been of assistance. We've long prepared for our emergence onto the galactic stage, though we had hoped for less violent circumstances. Indeed, Philia said carefully. Now that the immediate danger has passed, we look forward to the withdrawal of your military forces and the beginning of peaceful diplomatic relations between our peoples. A subtle tension filled the room. Hayes glanced at Captain Reyes, who sat beside him, before responding. I'm afraid that won't be possible, Elder Philia. The treaty we're proposing includes a permanent Earth military presence on Lumina. Murmurs of shock and dismay swept through the Xendari delegation. This is unexpected, Philia said, her normally melodious voice trained. Surely such measures are unnecessary now that the Vreckens have been defeated. The Vreckens were merely the first threat, Hayes explained. Our intelligence suggests they won't be the last. The galaxy has noticed your world, Elder Philia, its resources, its strategic position. Without protection, you will be vulnerable to the next predator that comes along. We could petition the Galactic Confederation for membership, Counselor Varan suggested. Their protection would come too late, if at all, Hayes interrupted. The Confederation's non-intervention protocols are well documented. They debate while worlds burn. What exactly are you proposing? Philia asked, her eyes narrowing. An alliance. Earth will establish a permanent military base on Lumina, providing defense for your people. In exchange, we gain access to your technology, particularly your advances in crystalline computing and energy harmonics. And if we decline? The room fell silent. Hayes leaned forward, his expression grave but not unkind. Elder Philia, humanity has joined this conflict at great cost. We've lost lives defending your world. Our fleet is committed. We cannot simply leave you undefended, nor can we ignore the strategic importance of this system. One way or another, Earth will maintain a presence here. The implication was clear. The Xendari had asked for help, and now they would have to live with the consequences. News of Earth's decisive victory over the Vreckens spread quickly through the galaxy. In the chambers of the Galactic Confederation on the ancient world of Axia, representatives from 300 species gathered in emergency session. The reports are conclusive, announced Delegate Zorkal of the Tespari domain. This previously unknown species, these humans, destroyed a Vrecken war fleet with minimal losses. The Vreckens have been raiding our borders for decades, and suddenly they're running scared. More concerning, added Delegate Mariva, a gaseous entity contained within an environmental suit, is that these humans have established a military outpost on Lumina without Confederation approval. They're claiming the entire system as a protectorate. The Xendari invited them, argued another delegate. They sent a distress call. They asked for help, not occupation. The Supreme Counselor, an ancient action with skin like polished obsidian, raised a hand for silence. What do we know about these humans? Their capabilities, their intentions. A holographic display activated in the center of the chamber, showing images of Earth, its fleet, and the battle over Lumina. Surprisingly little, admitted the Confederation's Chief Intelligence Coordinator. They'd been observing us for decades, apparently, while we barely noticed them. Their homeworld is a Class M planet in an unremarkable system. We classify them as a Level 3 civilization, capable of interstellar travel but presumed to be limited to their immediate stellar neighborhood. Clearly that assessment was flawed, the Supreme Counselor noted dryly. Indeed, their technology is unusual. They've taken different development paths than most Confederation species. Less elegant, perhaps, but undeniably effective in combat scenarios. And they appear to have a cultural familiarity with warfare that exceeds even the martial traditions of the Kreldax. Are they a threat to the Confederation? Asked Delegate Mariva directly. The intelligence coordinator hesitated. Unknown. Their actions at Lumina could be interpreted as either noble or opportunistic. They answered a call for help, but they've also secured themselves a strategic foothold and access to Xendari technology. I recommend we dispatch a diplomatic delegation immediately. Delegate Zorkel suggested. We need to understand their intentions and make clear the Confederation's position on unauthorized military expansion. The Supreme Counselor nodded slowly. A wise precaution, but let us also increase our military readiness. The galaxy has just become a more complicated place. Back on Lumina, reconstruction efforts were progressing rapidly. Earth engineers worked alongside Sendari architects, rebuilding the shattered crystal cities with a blend of technologies that created structures both beautiful and resilient. Admiral Chen walked with Elder Thalia through a garden that had been restored to its former glory. Despite the Sendari leaders' considerable height advantage, there was no doubt which of them carried the greater authority now. Your people work quickly, Thalia observed. The damage that would have taken us years to repair is being undone in weeks. Efficiency is a human specialty, Chen replied, especially after a crisis. The treaty has been signed, Thalia said after a moment of silence. Many on the council were reluctant, but we had little choice. You had a choice, Chen corrected her. It was simply between accepting Earth's protection willingly or unwillingly. Either way, we weren't leaving. Some would call that conquest. We call it pragmatism. The galaxy is more dangerous than your people realized, Elder Thalia. The Vrekans were merely opportunistic raiders. There are worse threats out there. So we trade one master for another. Chen stopped walking, turning to face the Sendari elder directly. No, you trade extinction for survival. Earth doesn't want subjects or slaves. We want allies who can stand with us. Stand with you against what? The Confederation has maintained peace for millennia. A fragile peace built on treaties and non-intervention pacts. Chen said dismissively. What happens when someone decides those treaties aren't worth the data they're stored on? What happens when the next predator comes, one that doesn't respect the Confederation's authority? You sound as if you're preparing for war, Admiral. As Rodriguez departed, Thalia looked at Chen with newfound concern. You expected this. Of course. The Confederation couldn't ignore what happened here. They're coming to assess the situation, to determine if we're a threat. And are you? A threat? Chen smiled, a thin expression that didn't reach her eyes. That depends entirely on them. The Confederation delegation arrived with pomp and circumstance aboard a massive diplomatic vessel. They were welcomed in the newly reconstructed Grand Plaza of the Sendari capital, where representatives from Earth and Lumina waited to receive them. Supreme Delegate Axon, a being of luminous energy contained within an ornate mechanical body, stepped forward. I bring greetings from the Galactic Confederation, the United Assembly of 300 Worlds. Ambassador Hayes bowed slightly. Welcome to Lumina, Supreme Delegate. I am William Hayes, representing the United Earth Government. Your intervention here has caused quite a stir, Ambassador Hayes. The Confederation has protocols for first contact scenarios and for military actions within Confederation space. Lumina is not a Confederation world, Hayes pointed out. And as for first contact, we've been monitoring Confederation activities for some time. We simply chose when to make our presence known. The Supreme Delegate's energy form flickered, a sign of irritation. Nevertheless, establishing a military outpost in this region without consultation was necessary to save the Sendari people from extinction, Hayes finished. A task the Confederation seemed unwilling or unable to perform. Elder Thalia stepped forward, perhaps sensing the growing tension. Supreme Delegate, while the circumstances are unusual, Earth's assistance has been invaluable. Without their intervention, our civilization would have been lost. We understand your gratitude, Elder Thalia, the delegate responded. But there are larger considerations at play. The balance of power in this sector has changed. Admiral Chen interjected, speaking for the first time. The Sendari are now under Earth's protection. That is non-negotiable. The Supreme Delegate's mechanical form straightened, its glowing eyes focusing on Chen. You speak boldly for a species new to interstellar politics, Admiral. We speak as we find necessary, Supreme Delegate. Humanity has observed the Confederation's policies of non-intervention for years. We've watched as smaller worlds were exploited or conquered while the Confederation debated. We chose a different path. A dangerous path, the delegate warned. The Confederation maintains peace through balance and restraint. Unilateral military action threatens that balance. Peace without justice is merely oppression by another name, Hayes said quietly. The Xendari called for help. We answered. We will continue to answer such calls when they come, even if it brings you into conflict with the Confederation. A tense silence fell over the plaza. Finally, Hayes spoke, his voice measured but firm. Humanity hopes for friendship with the Confederation, not conflict. But we will not stand by while innocent worlds suffer. That is our position. It will not change. The Supreme Delegate's energy form pulsed rapidly, communicating silently with the other members of the delegation. After a long moment, he spoke again. The Confederation Council will need to discuss Earth's emergence onto the galactic stage. In the meantime, we propose a temporary agreement recognizing your presence here, pending further diplomatic negotiations. Acceptable, Hayes nodded, but understand that our commitment to Lumina's protection is permanent. As the formal diplomatic proceedings continued, Admiral Chen stepped away, moving to the edge of the plaza where she could look up at the sky. Earth ships patrolled in formation, their silhouettes visible against Lumina's blue atmosphere. Captain Rodriguez joined her. The Confederation fleet remains in high orbit. They're maintaining battle readiness. As are we, Chen replied. Old habits die hard. Do you think they'll accept our presence here? Chen shrugged slightly. They have little choice. They won't risk open conflict with us, not after what happened to the Vreckens. And if they do, then they'll learn what the Vreckens learned. Humanity doesn't start fights, Captain, but we certainly finish them. She turned back to watch the diplomatic proceedings, where Ambassador Hayes was now explaining Earth's vision for the future, a galaxy where the strong protected the weak, where calls for help were answered with action, not debate. The Xendari had asked for salvation. What they got instead was humanity, with all its strength, its determination, and its unstoppable force of will. They had called into the darkness of space, desperate and alone. And humanity had answered, bringing with it a light that would change the galaxy forever. For better or for worse, the age of human expansion had begun.